the last thing that I kind of really want to talk about are the women. Infertility sometimes gets a lot of attention. I think, thank goodness, more and more women are talking about it. It's important that you share that you're going through this, because so many women feel like they're on a total island as they go through this. They feel like they are the only person that they know who's ever had this problem. And that's a huge burden that no woman should have to share. I personally dealt with infertility for about 2 years before I got pregnant with my first. And so I think it's important that I'm an OBGYN. I couldn't get pregnant, okay? And for me, that was so hard. I had such a hard time with that. I felt like this is my field, this is my specialty. How am I having trouble with this? And, I know what the books say. I know what I've talked about today, but convincing yourself of that is really difficult and can be a real struggle. So it's important to talk about it. You'll be shocked at how many women in your life you've talked to that have had these troubles and have had to go through this. And I think, again, kind of taking that burden off of your shoulders. This is not on you. This is not something that you're doing wrong, okay? This is just something with your body. And it's just like any other medical problem. It's just something with your body that we need to work through and help you get what you want as best as we can. And the other side of that is there's the women who have no trouble getting pregnant necessarily, but then have trouble carrying the babies. And that can be such a nightmare because you have these incredible moments of joy with positive pregnancy tests, and then these incredible moments of despair when you realize that it's just not going to happen this time. And I think really, again, talk about it. Please talk about it. Miscarriage is unfortunately so incredibly common. At least 1 in 3 women is going to have a miscarriage at some point in their lives. So please talk with your family, talk with your friends. Then
a lot of people want to hide it, and they don't tell anyone because they don't want to have to tell them later that they miscarried. And my first was a miscarriage, and I'd told a few select people about it, and I was grateful for that, because then when I went through it, I could go back and tell them I miscarried and have a shoulder to cry on,
right,
and have to have someone be there for me. And if you don't tell anyone, then you have no one there for you, and you just kind of internalize that. And especially if you have recurrent miscarriages. I mean, that's another topic for another day, but that's so painful too.
It really, really is. And I think that, I would encourage those women to talk with your OB as you go through this. Talk about, if there's any testing that you should have done or anything like that to see why this is happening to you. But mostly just talk to other people, let them know what's going on with you. I mean, I understand not telling, not posting it on Facebook the moment you find out you're pregnant, because you don't want to have to tell everyone if something happens. And with the commonness of miscarriages, that's kind of where that you don't tell anyone until after your first trimester thing came from. But I think, like you said, telling, intimate members of your families and friends kind of what you're dealing with, or that you're pregnant, so that if you do have something, you have someone you can go to and say, what, this happened to me, and I don't know how I'm going to work through this. And having that person you can talk to becomes so important.
Invaluable.
Yeah. And a lot of times you'd be surprised if you tell your mom that this happened to you. She'll say, that happened to me, or, it had happened to your aunt, or, it had happened to my mom, or it happened to your sister and she never told you, or, all of those things that you can realize, okay, this is not just me. This happens to a lot of women. That doesn't necessarily make it better.
That doesn't downplay it. It just makes it feel like maybe there's hope, because maybe they went on to have other children and it worked out for them.
And the vast majority of women will. The vast majority of women after one miscarriage will go on to have a totally normal, healthy pregnancy with their next. So it's important that you know that. But it's also important that you realize you're just not alone as you're going through this. You're just not. And there's just so many people who have gone through this same thing. The other thing I always tell people too is don't let anyone tell you that, oh, you were barely pregnant. It's no big deal. Because that is just not true.
It's a loss. You are grieving the loss of a child, because you see that positive test, like you were saying earlier, and all those feelings come to you, and you accept it, and you're excited about it. And even if the miscarriage happened a few days later, it shatters your world.
Oh, it totally does. I mean, I've had women who have come to the emergency room because they've had heavy bleeding and didn't know why. And just in the testing in the emergency room, finding out you're pregnant and then this is a miscarriage, all even within just a few hours of each other, or even within the same sentence. The moment someone tells you that you're pregnant, your whole world changes. And for a lot of women, they immediately see some child and that child growing up and their whole family changing. And even if the next sentence is, and we think you're having a miscarriage, it can shatter.
The loss of all of that.
Right. It just shatters everything that you're feeling. And it is appropriate to grieve that. It is appropriate to grieve that loss. It is appropriate to take some time and get over that before trying pregnancy again. Now, you can try pregnancy again actually fairly quickly after a miscarriage. Usually, once you have that next normal cycle, then if you want to get pregnant, you can. As far as your body.
How long does it usually take?
Well, and again, same
state.
issues as normally getting pregnant. I'd usually tell people to wait for that next period, just kind of help everything flush out and make sure everything is ready and back to its baseline state before getting pregnant again. And then after that, your rates of fertility is the same as they were before. So it doesn't change anything as far as that goes. But it's just trying to, again, unseat that burden. This is not on you. You didn't do anything wrong to have that miscarriage. And it's important that you understand that this isn't your fault. Sometimes these things happen. The thing I always tell people is making a human is really difficult, okay? So you have to get all those chromosomes lined up just perfectly. Everything has to split and divide millions of times just perfectly. And if there is some shift there where something didn't happen the way it was supposed to, it's not on you. It's not like you're the one putting them together and splitting them apart. It just happens. And so it's important that you understand that there's nothing you could have done, that it's not that your body is somehow not able to do this. Give it some time, try again. The vast majority of women are going to be able to do this. So, and if you're not, again, that does not make you less of a woman, okay? That does not affect your womanhood or your femininity or your value in society or any of those things. Your value is what you make it. And so, like I said, if you've gone through everything, you've put yourself through the ringer, you still can't get pregnant, you have the opportunity, if you want, to potentially adopt and make some other child's life better. Or even just being someone who talks to women about everything that they've been through and, hey, this is normal, and hey, this is what you should expect when you go to the infertility specialist, and this is what you should expect when you go to your GYN. Just talking about those things can be really, really helpful. And along those same lines is taking the pressure off as family and friends of women going through this. So I honestly tell people that I think a question that we really shouldn't be asking very much is, when are you going to have a baby? Because you never know what those women are going through. You're potentially, by asking that question, you're asking a young woman who's not ready yet and trying to, and not that this is your intention behind the question, but kind of adding a little pressure on someone who's just not ready yet that they should be trying to get pregnant. I've had women in tears in my office over this.
Whether it be your first or you have 2 kids and everyone's like, when are you going to have another one?
Right,
another one?
Exactly. Yeah. So adding that extra pressure on when it's appropriate for someone to start a family it's just more than most women need. And then on top of that, you don't know if when you ask that question that this woman has had infertility issues. That was the hardest.
Miscarriages
Right. That was the hardest part for me is, I had been trying and I was, stubborn and didn't tell people what I was going through in general. And so every time I got that question, so when are you guys going to have a baby? It was just like a knife. And every time I was like, well, I don't know, whenever we're ready, I guess. And that wasn't the case. I was ready a year ago and it just hasn't happened. And so, and then on top of that, the women who are having miscarriages and have been trying and it just hasn't happened for them yet. And so I think just maybe a little more care with that question can be helpful for a lot of people. And obviously the people who are asking it are actually asking it out of goodwill. They want you to have kids and a family, and they're saying that because they love you and they're excited for that part of your life. So there's certainly no ill intention that goes along with that question, but it's just,
It's good to be sensitive,
Right.
and to know
Just
that
be
these
aware.
issues exist for a lot of people. And
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. Just kind of being aware of that could be something that's going on. Maybe if you've known someone who's been married for a while and it hasn't happened, maybe that's not a question to ask them,
Right.
you know? But honestly, some people want to get pregnant right away and it doesn't happen. So it can be even someone who's been with someone for a long time, or maybe they're not married. Maybe they just wanted to start a family and it hasn't happened. So it's important to at least be aware that someone might be going through that before kind of needling that question a little too much.
great advice and invaluable information, Dr. Moyer.
Oh.
We're so lucky to have been with you today, and I hope that this information has been helpful to you out there too. And of course, everything we've talked about today is just, generally speaking. So
Right.
if anyone's struggling with infertility, talk with your doctor, and they'll be able to ask more specific questions and perform an exam, and then determine where to go with that for you so that you can achieve your dreams of having a baby. Thanks again so much, Dr. Moyer, for being with us today.
Not a problem. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to help.